welcome back to the Healthy Home Show podcast. And today I'm speaking to Katie Brumley from Organise To Thrive. Now, Katie and I met at the Clean and Tidy show, I think it was, which was super fun. And Marie Kondo was headlining there, who is a famous, would you call her a declutterer, home organiser? But this is exactly what Katie does. So Katie's going to give us the inside information and all the secrets around home organising today, I hope. Hi, Katie. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. Lovely to see you again.
Yeah, lovely to see you again too. Yeah, it was a fun show, actually. It was funny. I was surprised quite how heavily focused it was around home organising. Now, I think that's what the title is of what you do for a business, but you might want to tell me what the difference between a declutterer is, a home organiser, whether there is a difference, or how would you kind of define what you do?
Well, when I explain to people what I do, I always say I'm a professional organiser and declutterer because I think the two go hand in hand, really. Unless you're walking to a very decluttered home and they just need a little help with where things should go, then the organising part comes into it. But most of the time it's because we have too much that we need to edit and declutter before we can sort of make sense then of what actually is left and where it should be. So I think that's why the decluttering and the organising kind of come hand in hand, I guess.
Yeah, cool. And I'm really, really interested around kind of decluttering because I know, and home organizing, because I know the benefits that it has on our mental health, on our
Mm-hmm.
mind. I was particularly interested to kind of learn about your work with neurodivergent individuals and the benefit that
Mm-hmm.
that has on their life. Would you mind maybe starting with that? Could you explain to me about the work that you do around that and how it helps those individuals?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think I'm finding more and more, I'm in my fourth year now in business, that more and more of my clients are neurodivergent because I guess they come with other struggles, and then they look to someone to help them understand and make sense of those struggles in the home. And I would say that no two people are the same in that respect. They do have very different struggles, and it all depends on whether it's getting out in the morning, whether it's things with their children or their work. So when I start working with someone, we really go through the structure of their day. We talk about what their main struggles are. Is it that they can't remember things to get to work? Is it they misplace things? It's really important to ask rather than me seeing, because I might walk in somewhere and think, oh, actually, that doesn't look too bad, or think, oh my gosh, this is terrible. But actually, it depends on the individual and what that struggle means for them. So it's really delving in with each client to find out what their struggles are, what they need help with. And sometimes they often don't know. So it's asking the right questions and pulling that out of them. And sometimes I'm analysing it after. So even when I've done a consult with someone, I might take it away and have a sort of a good think about it. And if you have a few aha moments about, what I think needs to be put in place in order to make the difference to them.
And that's super interesting. So you're kind of like offering a bit of a coaching service as well, really. What do they normally come to you then? What's their initial kind of problem that they think they have when they come to you that maybe then you look at a whole kind of holistic view of their life and then give them a more specific or bespoke solution?
Well, most of the time they all think I'm just really messy and I'm never going to be able to be tidy. They've got these little inner voices of what they think that they can and can't do. And maybe it's even what growing up somebody's told them that they'll never be this, or they've always been the messy one, or that things like that. So often it's breaking all those sorts of things down, and it's just really, how do I put it? It's looking at each area. Quite often, I found, especially with ADHD clients, is they just get overwhelmed really easily, or they start on something and they can never finish it. So it's breaking it down into sort of chunks, smaller chunks, bite-sized chunks that better able to be dealt with than looking at all as a big whole thing. But then they're just like, oh no, 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 that's too much for me. And quite often when I work with them, especially if we're editing, um, I will declutter it. I will put it into categories, more manageable things, so that then when they come back into the room, they haven't got that overwhelm anymore. They're looking at each category on its own merit rather than a sea of things. Um, because quite often, if they are faced with that, they just withdraw and they just like, oh, I can't do that. I can't cope with that. So I'm like, it's okay. Go and have a cup of tea. Let me sort it, order it, categorize it. And then they can come back in and it's much easier for them to deal with.
And what is your approach, say, for kind of other people who aren't neurodivergent, for example? Because I guess, like, when I think about the amount of stuff that we buy in general in our society, basically, most of which we don't need, and it kind of builds up and up and up in our houses. And we sort of, I don't know, a lot of us have a bit of a resistance to get rid of it. I mean, I'm quite good around not buying more stuff, but at the same time, I don't really want to throw stuff away, not only because you've paid for it, but also because I'm kind of thinking about the fact that where's this going to go? Is it going to go into
Yeah,
landfill? Where's it going to go after it's left my house? And I understand the benefits of clearing space and having more flow in the space, because I can kind of feel that, like, in my, in my own body or in my own kind of
yeah.
emotions. But I'm just wondering kind of how, whether you see a lot of resistance from people with initial overwhelm, and where you would start.
I think we all have a bit too much. I mean, everything's so easily available now. We can get it next day on Amazon. And I think as easily as it comes in, we don't find it as easy to take it out again. But if we don't, it just grows and grows and grows. So sometimes it's even just setting aside the time. A lot of the people I work with, that's their one thing they don't have is any time. I think for all of us now, we're pushed to earn a lot, work a lot, kids, all these things. So actually setting aside the time to actually go through stuff and edit it out. This is the one thing that most people are lacking. Hence why I come and help them, because we get a lot done in a short amount of time. But there is a responsibility as well for what we bring into our homes. Is then when does it go? And a lot more people are thinking about that. So there's lots of different ways that we can remove the things from our home. Obviously, charity shops, Facebook Marketplace, they're selling all these sorts of things. Again, it comes down to time and, whether you've got the time to do that. So quite often I encourage people usually to give it away to charity, because it doesn't then become another job for you to do, which it can do. And I often say to people, if you break it down into how much time it takes you to list on eBay, Vinted, all these sorts of things, how much are you working for an hour? Would you work for that amount of hour? And is it actually worth your time? So we have to be careful how we then edit and how we want to remove it, that we don't create a whole nother job for ourselves in that way too. But again, I think the same as with my neurodivergent clients, it's just breaking it down into manageable sections and areas, a bit like we've seen on some of the programs on the telly. When you put things, you sort a room and you put things into categories, it's much easier to work through each of those categories. Even if you don't do it all in that one day, if you just take one box, and when you've done that box or you've done that drawer, having the win and the little dopamine hit of I've sorted that, it looks good. Whether you've got time to do some more, do some more. But if you haven't, you've got that win for the day, and it helps keep momentum of moving on. We've all seen, again, some memes on the internet of where someone's surrounded by all their stuff going, oh, I started and look what I found, and now nobody wants to continue, because it is a lot to be doing all in one go. It's leaving enough time to finish the job and feel accomplished after we've done that. So again, when somebody works with me, I remove some of those issues from them, and they still often can get on with other things in the home while I'm sorting, and just come in and out and make the decisions. So that helps it all move a little bit, a little bit quicker and a little bit easier.
That's great. And when you say you put things into categories, do you mean like you go room by room, or like you would basically have an overall category, like, I don't know, phone chargers, which I seem to have a million of?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it depends if we're working on just one room or if I'm doing a whole house for a client. So if we're working on one room, let's say for instance it's wardrobe, clothes, we will get everything out, but we will put into categories of leggings and underwear or, all shirts, so that
Uh-huh.
when you bring all those things together, it's the only way you can make an educated decision of what you have actually got. Do you need those? And we can go then through all the questions of do you need it? When did you wear it? All those. But the only way we can actually see what we have is to bring all those things together. And it's like when I'm doing a whole house with somebody, those things might be in all different rooms. And actually somebody doesn't have any idea what they have. They're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I had that many. And charges, all that sort of thing is always one of the worst categories because, again, we accumulate them over so many times. I must keep that charger or I must keep that lead. And it might be something we had 10 years ago we don't even have anymore, but everybody always has a box of chargers.
Mm-hmm.
It's always the worst thing to go through, but we can't know what we've got until it's all together in one place. And then we can make an educated decision, and it makes also sense to the client that, yeah, I do need to let a few of those things go because actually I've got 10, don't need 10.
Yeah, completely. Well, an obvious place to start, I suppose, is the wardrobe, because as I think I read on your website, we wear only 20% of our clothes, is it? 80% of the time. So I guess that would be, well, it makes sense that we would start there. So when is that where you normally start with your clients, and how do you go about filtering that out? Like, do you have a kind of rule of thumb? For example, if you haven't worn it for the last 6 months, then it goes to the charity shop, or, is there another kind of strategy that you use?
Again, it's very individual to each client. Some people, you get it out, they're just like, no, yeah, no. Other people, they and ah. So it even depends on how sentimental someone is for something. Some people be like, oh, I wore that for this. And so no two people are the same. And there's different ways around it. It's not as simple as just saying, oh, you didn't wear it in 6 months, so get rid of it, because it might be something that you'd only wear to a certain occasion. And, although those occasions are not every day, we still have those occasions, and you might want to keep it for that instead of buying something new. So it's not always as simple as have you worn it. But you can usually tell when someone picks it up whether they do really like it. And I do ask them, like, do you feel good in that? And they're like, and usually that in your heart, whether you really like something or you don't. And you really should have in your wardrobe what you love. I think I once shared a quote about going into your wardrobe should be like a party of, all the great guests and all this sort of thing, things that you love and you can't wait to wear, not so it's really having it easy. So it's easy to choose what you want because there's things in there that you do look good in, you do feel good in. I think also one of the worst things is stuff that doesn't fit us.
Yeah.
That's a big one. I've been there, having children, moving up and down in size and weight. And some people want to keep as they want to maybe get back down to a size. And I think, again, having a conversation about what's your priority at the moment. If your priority is you're trying to change the way you eat, you're trying to change all those priorities, that's great. And you're on that road to that. But if it isn't your priority at the moment and it's for another time, then it may be better to let those things to go so that when it is a priority and you're moving towards that goal, you then maybe reward yourself with some things that you feel good in. Then once you reach that place, rather than that, it's just that out of reach place that you might never get to. And does it make you happy or sad looking at those things in your wardrobe? Does it make you go, oh, I wish I was this size? But again, it just might not be your time of life for that moment where you can go hell for leather on your health and healthy regime. So it's very individualistic to each person, but it's, again, with your room, with your clothes, what's your vision and your goal and your purpose for what you want it to do for you? And I think nobody can really move forward unless they know that for sure. Otherwise you don't know what you're working towards, and you can't make a decision if you do or don't need that because you don't know whether it's part of the way you want to live or the way you want to be or the way you want to feel.
Yeah, that's super interesting, actually. Yeah, because it's really emotional. It's like, what do you want your identity to be? And is your home and your wardrobe aligning with that, essentially?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And would you encourage people to like store stuff maybe for the eventuality that they're kind of then ready to step into this new weight or new identity? Or do you just think that holding on to things in a garage or an attic is bad energy?
Again, it depends on the person. You know, some people just cannot bear to part with them. And I think if they've got room, it's a different story. Some of the people I work with, they just don't have the room. So then they are a little bit more forced to be a bit more brutal, perhaps with their editing, because you can't keep everything and still live how you want to live in your home. Um, and sometimes that's quite a hard sort of thing to swallow, but it is the truth. If you want to live and be in your home in a certain way, you can't keep everything if there's nowhere for it to go. You know, often I'm like, I am not the fairy godmother. I can't wave a wand and just make everything fit if there is too many things. So, but it also, if that's really painful for somebody to part with their things, they also shouldn't do, because that's not what it's about. If you really love something and you want to keep it for when you're going to wear it, you know, who am I to say, no, you can't do that? So it's very individualistic to each person. But I think you have to work towards the goal or the purpose or the feeling that you want. And even sometimes I've stuck that up in the room on the wall for somebody. If they're then carrying on our journey, but by themselves, always go back to your vision and purpose of what you want to do in this room. Because on those days where it's a bit hard, or you can go back to that, and that keeps you focused on where you want to be and where you want to go.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I remember when I'm kind of like trying to go through my wardrobe and cut it down a bit, I've actually got some t-shirts, which I love. I never wear because they're not really ones that you wear, but they're kind
Yeah.
of mementos
Yeah.
of occasions that I've been at, or, you know, concerts that I've been at, or they're kind of like promotional kind of t-shirts, let's say.
Yeah.
So I put them in frames because
Yeah.
they were hanging around in my wardrobe, and I was like literally carrying them from kind of pillar to post like the entire time, and they were just clogging up space. And they make really good print. They look really nice in a frame, actually, and I think it makes much more of a thing out of them, basically. So, are there any other kind of tricks like that that you tend to use with people that maybe to make something that they can't let go of into more of a special thing and display it better?
Yeah. There's actually so many creative and amazing people out there that do this sort of thing. I mean, I tend to find it more with people with kids' clothes or family members that they've lost, that they might have lots of. There's somebody that makes like mosaic sort of pictures and things out of lots of different cards. If you've kept cards, I mean, I struggle with cards a little bit, especially if somebody's written something really nice in it. Um, they make special pictures out of that. You can have teddies made. You can have blankets. So there's so many. If you Google, usually somebody makes something out of the thing that you've got too many of. And again, you're creating a job for somebody else, you know, by doing that. And it's then all these things into one thing that you can have displayed. I always say, just like you did with your t-shirt, the things that you love and that bring you real joy when you see them, they should be out on display. You should be able to see them. They should be jogging your memory for those, you know, those special times. So I think a lot of people pack them away. I must keep that, and you know, and they pack it away, but actually have it out. Have what you love out so you can see it, you know. That's a real big thing. Use it as decor, you know.
Mm.
So that's a great idea with your t-shirts, but you can do it with kids' art. You can make books out of it now. There's companies you can send all your kids' art off to, and they make
Ah,
like almost like a coffee table book out of it. I mean, what an
that's
amazing thing! And
clever.
then you haven't got all these pictures of all what your kids wrote, and you know, and it's also kept by year and things like that. So there's so many things out there now for help with that. Um, Especially even there's people who will even organize your photos, even the photos on your phone.
Wow.
So there is
God, I could
somebody,
really do with that because I've
yeah,
got
so do we
thousands.
all.
I don't even know how to delete them all. I think I've attempted it once and then I just thought, oh, I just gave up basically and just left it up to the cloud or whatever it does. Yeah, that's a really good idea, actually. I love the idea of that. I've got like boxfuls of cards and notes and stuff from people over the years that I don't really want to get rid of because they're special memories, but
Mm.
I haven't really thought of a way yet to kind of display them effectively.
Mm.
But that's a good idea, putting them into a book. I'd never thought of that. That's a great idea.
And it looks, it's a chicer way to look at it, and you're more likely to pick it up and look at it when it's in that sort of format than getting the whole box of something out. It's a much easier way to sort of flick through.
Yeah, I love that. And so when the people actually go through your photos generally, what do they do? Do they put them on a kind of disc? I mean, a disc, do they even exist anymore? I'm not even sure.
I think they clean it up. Yeah, I think they send them back to you in a sort of a more manageable file, but they will even take out, sometimes when you took 3 or 4, they will even pick out the best one and things like that. I mean, it's amazing, really, because we all have way too many photos because we don't print them anymore. So, yeah, so there's people out there that even do photos, because photos is very, very time consuming
Mm.
for the best of us. So it's a good service to have.
I love that idea. That's really cool. I actually went through trying to put all my CDs onto like hard drive basically once. And I think I gave up halfway through and just thought, bugger it, I'll just keep the CDs. It's fine. I wanted to ask you, because obviously the work that I do is all about kind of environments, as in
Mhm,
your kind of home spaces, workspaces, and the effect that they have on your health. So I'm
mhm,
always interested to see how better organization, better systems, more decluttering. How I'm always interested to see the effect that has on our mental health, basically. And I
mm,
was interested to read specifically on your website around the work that you do to like prepare nurseries and kids' rooms and to kind of maximize or spark creativity and also for it to
mhm.
be the most calming environment possible so that the child's development is optimized. So would you mind explaining a bit more about how you go about that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think families are probably one of the biggest groups that I work with, because I think when you have children, your whole level of stuff, is quadrupled, and often even what you didn't choose, because things come in from other people. Kids do need so many different things, and it does get less and less then as they get older. Um, But I think, well, one, my sister owns a preschool, so I've had a little bit firsthand of understanding a little bit more the early years. And then obviously with my own children, it was always interesting for me to see that most of the time my kids wanted to just be in my cupboards in the kitchen than actually play with anything that I bought them. Because kids want to sort of imitate us. That's why they dress up. That's why they do all these things. They see what we're doing and they want to do those things. And that's a whole part of creating, being innovative. All those things are just by finding everyday objects. Sometimes when we then overcomplicate kids' spaces by putting lots of very bright, loud lights flashing, all these sorts of things, they don't have to think for themselves anymore. It's all
Mm.
kind of done for them. We can have the same argument a little bit about screens, but that's a whole other one. But it, we want, when you've got less, there's that thing of when kids say they're bored, they'll go and find something to do because you just have to. You can't sit there and do nothing. So I found, and also we find obviously with the preschool, that the less things that are out, the more creative kids are, the more they create little worlds or, all the things at home that are out of your cupboards, the pots, the pans. Why Lego has gone on for as many years as it has is because it's just such a simple concept, but there's so many possibilities with it. You'll find a lot of toys now. There isn't endless possibilities. They only do one or two things, and so they are cast away very quickly. So I think looking at those sort of toys, the building toys, there's these magnetic ones now. There's so many possibilities with them. They're creative. And again, just having a box of things at a time that you get out and your kids immerse themselves in that one sort of group of thing or bring things together. Um, when there is a sea of all sorts of toys, it's the same as us. When our home is full of stuff, it's overwhelming to know where to start. What do I pick? What do I do? And it's the same for kids. And so they are everything that they need to grow and develop, to be innovative, to be creative, to use cognitive skills, hands, is so much better with less things. And again, the environment that they find themselves in, our outside world is the perfect thing, really. than what we can often fill our homes with. So that's why we're now seeing, as we understand kids a little bit more, we're seeing the rise of lots more forest schools, outdoor play. I mean, at my sister's preschool now, they've got a massive forest school, and kids can go out from very small, obviously wrapped up well and age appropriate things. But it's where kids learn so many important things that they just don't learn indoors, or they don't learn when those possibilities aren't there for them. So
Mm.
I think sometimes it's just watching your kids. What are they drawn to? If they don't have anything, well, what are they drawn to? What do they go towards? And every kid's different. So it's looking at those things rather than all of the stuff. And that can be very hard with grandparents, kids' parties, that's a whole another level. But I think if you get in the right mindset of, you don't have to keep something just because somebody gave it to you. Does it benefit my child? Would it be better for somebody else? It's going through these sort of conversations. Takes a little bit of time to learn, and we're all not always brilliant at that. But have in mind when stuff comes into your home, especially for the kids, is it something they'll use? Just because if they don't, you don't have to keep it just because somebody gave it to you. Somebody else might have far more benefit from it than you do or your children. And to not feel sort of guilty about that.
Mm. I guess in time gone by, when we used to have a bit more kind of larger family units, and maybe they were a bit more
Mm,
connected than they are these days, especially in the UK. I think we've lost kind of a lot of our kind of like family
mm,
units. I guess it was normal practice to hand everything down, pass
yeah,
everything on, make that whole kind of make, do, amend, and kind of repurpose and recycle kind of culture. And I think that definitely needs to come back quite a lot. I think there's so much comparison, isn't there? That's the problem. And I think it's sort of
yeah,
maybe parents kind of feel guilty if they're not giving their kids the same as what
they
other
do.
kids are getting at school. So,
And I think in some ways, I think we can give our kids most things now, which we couldn't perhaps when I was younger, because, you know, whether it's we have more disposable income or whether it's just more ready available. And so it's actually harder, I think, now to stop yourself doing that. What's it teach? These are things I ask myself. It's not particular that I'm saying everybody else should do it my way, but it is, what does that teach my child that I can just give them whatever they want? Because as an adult, I just can't have whatever I want. We know how the money comes in and it goes out, and the decisions that we have to make and the priorities. And maybe, I don't know, we rob our kids of that a little bit if we just provide everything they need. Well, how does it build their resilience? How does it build them working towards goals and things like that? And I don't want to take those opportunities away from my kids, but it's very, very hard as a parent. I mean, I must say it's quite hard
and how
being a
does it
parent.
it also takes away from that sense of, that sense of gratitude, I think. I mean, when we were a lot younger, yeah, my parents never really had that much money when I was growing up, and you saved towards stuff. So you were kind of thinking about what you were going to buy with your pocket money. I don't think I got pocket money, but anyway, we were making money somehow. And yeah, that sense of gratitude when you actually got it. So you looked after it much
Yeah,
better. And yeah, I
yeah,
definitely think that the whole disposable kind of nature now that we have in our culture is really not good, is it? We kind of, but I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? Because we're kind of like oversold to in this
yeah,
capitalist machine. Basically, it's constantly convincing us that we should have the next thing, otherwise we're missing out,
yeah,
or we're not good people, or some things. They're pushing all the buttons to kind of like make us buy more. But I think you're right. I think we are doing a disservice to children if we're not encouraging them to basically be a bit more bored and be a bit more creative. It's that whole kind of cardboard box concept, isn't it? It's like you
yeah,
buy something and the child is much more interested in the cardboard box that it came in than the actual thing itself.
yeah. And they love drawing on them and they love making things with them. I mean, quite often if we've had big deliveries and things at the preschool, we just set up a cardboard station and the kids just go wild and they, oh my gosh, it's just the best thing. So it's being mindful, and it's helping teach our kids to be mindful. And just have a little bit more thought about it. Think a little bit more about why do you want that item, even if it's on the Christmas list. Why do you want that? And often mine says, oh, I saw it on the telly. So do you really want that? Or is this, it is what the telly's suggesting, what the
Yeah.
YouTube is suggesting. So it is, in some ways, it's kind of not our fault. It's asked us from every angle. So it's just, I think, just being a little bit more mindful.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you found that creating kind of much more kind of simple, calm environments for children have kind of helped their development, have you?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Oh gosh, you could go on for days with all the early years sort of research we have now about what kids should play with, how they should play. There's actually even there's a, I don't know if you call it sort of a movement, but there's the curiosity approach.
Mm-hmm.
They actually they're in an accredited setting where they actually have settings specifically that's a curiosity approach, where it's often set up with lots of very interesting objects, like, even old phones, things perhaps from days gone by that the kids just explore. And it's more about their curiosity and finding ways of they building it, putting it together, what does it do, than us always suggesting how they should play or what they should do. And it's all about just helping kids, use their brains in the way they always would have,
Yeah.
by exploring things, by, using their hands, textures, all this sort of thing. I mean, it's great now that we have all this info,
Mm.
and it's just sort of making use of it. And I think it's going a lot more that way in early years. But it's the same for, if I want my daughter to tidy up her room, or the easiest way is that she doesn't have so many things. It's so overwhelming when there is so much stuff, and she feels it herself. So when we've had a
Yeah.
really good edit and declutter, she's much even easier to tidy up and make it how she wants it.
Yeah, and we're the same as adults as well. I mean, I can feel the difference on my nervous system when I walk in somewhere that's, not overpopulated with like a load of furniture and a load of kind of stuff
Mhm.
everywhere. Um, so yeah, I definitely feel like it's better energy at least.
Mm, mm.
Um, so you can sense that in your nervous system, and also better for the mind, because obviously you haven't got those distractions coming in the entire time, because, things are a distraction. I kind of read this
Yeah.
book once and it was talking about the whole how things give off a negative energy if they're not kind of in order. So
Mm,
the fact that perhaps you're not that bothered that you've left your socks and everything on the floor because you're not kind of someone that's bothered by kind of clutter so much.
mm.
But this book was kind of saying that actually you are, because it's sending you kind of like subconscious messages the entire time that it needs to be ordered or something. And so that it's kind of having a pull on your focus the entire time, and changing your ability to focus on something else.
Mm.
So I always find that quite interesting around why you should have more order and why you should have kind of more organization. But yeah, I also wanted to ask you around, I've moved house a lot of times. And it's at that point when I think, oh my God, why have I got so much stuff? And I feel like I've done an edit like so many times, and I'm sure it has babies and I'm not looking or something, because it just kind of seem to get more and more stuff. I actually tried to move a couple of years ago and I had to put a load of stuff into storage for ages, and it stayed there for about a year longer than it was meant to. And then I just realized, why I haven't actually used any of that stuff for a year. So what's
Yeah.
even the point of getting it out of storage? But I just wondered if you had any tips basically for people who are going to have to move, and where to start with the edit, and whether to do it. Because I always sort of thought to myself, do I do the edit before I move? Obviously, it makes better economical sense because you're not moving kind of crap that
Yeah.
you're going to have to throw away at the other end.
Yeah.
But sometimes I've been a bit resistant to do that because you're not in your new space yet. And
Yeah.
I've sort of thrown stuff away or kind of given stuff away, or, donated stuff, and then arrived in a new space and thought, oh, damn, like I could have done with that now. So
Yeah.
what would your tips be around that?
So in an ideal world, you would always declutter before you go somewhere. So some of the reasons that you stated, you don't want to move stuff that you don't want to keep. And also when you get the other end, it's left to unpack. So in those, you've got those two reasons. But I think also, when you go to a new home, it will have a new feel. It is like almost starting again, and you won't ever do your living room the same as you did before. So I think it's very important to work through those sort of questions of, do I love this? If you want to go for the Marie Kondo, does it bring me joy?
Mm.
That's when, if you have the time to do that, which often people don't when they move house, because it's always like last minute sort of freak out. Oh, I've got to move in this many weeks. But it's, don't take anything with you that you don't love. Why would you do that? Really think about, if you're picking and packing things, do I, does this fit into my new life that I'm going to? Because essentially when we move home, we are going into a new life. We're going to a new way of being in a home. We might have, often we pick because I'm going to have a much bigger kitchen diner or things like that. So it's, what's the vision for your new home? How do you want it to feel? What do you want the important parts of your new home to be, so that when you're packing and editing, that you only take with you what is gonna, do I want to take this into my new life? That's quite a
Hmm.
good one to ask. Is it who I am now? Or is it somebody that I've just kept it because, it's a little bit of who I used to be as a person. So it's always better to edit and declutter before you go.
Hmm.
Um, that would just be my tips for people, really. But I know it's not always that easy because things creep up on us, and always a bit lastminute.com. But I think the more times you move also, the less you bring with you. Where if you meet a family that's lived in the same house for 30 to 40 years, and oh my gosh, do they have a lot of things, because they've never had to do that process, and they've never had to think about it in that way. So they're
Mm.
just happy to keep it sort of as it is, and things are tucked away in cupboards, in lofts, in the garage. It's only when you've then got to move it, you're like, oh my gosh, actually, we have so many things. Do we need all these things? So you will find that if you're a serial mover, you'll have a lot less. But if you've stayed in a family home for a long time, there will be a lot of things to go through. Um, and, downsizing is a whole nother issue, especially for people of a certain age, because they've been alive a lot more years and they've gathered and accumulated a lot more things. So,
Yeah.
and to try and edit that to go into a smaller home is quite distressing and quite hard.
Yeah, I can imagine, because it's almost like admitting, isn't it, that you have to kind of downsize, and there's changes happening in your life and changes happening in your body that is out of
Yeah.
your control. And it's quite, yeah, it's quite difficult to deal with. I find the same on health, really. It's like I'm sort of in denial slightly about the fact that my eyesight's like changing. I'm like, oh, it's not possible. But yeah, I'm
Yeah.
having to wear
Yeah.
glasses more and more, and it's a bit annoying. But anyway. Um, so I was going to ask you before you go, because obviously the work that I do is around kind of, as we said, the kind people's mental and physical health within spaces. I just wondering if you had any client stories that you could share, maybe whereby you've gone into people's houses and kind of like helped them change their energy or their life or their health, basically around kind of editing their things or organizing their things. I mean, I kind of think I've got people like hoarders in mind, because I know that that's
Mm.
such a difficult thing to deal with. So I just wondered whether you have any experience around that, or any other kind of client stories that you wanted to share.
I haven't really worked with a lot of hoarders. It's a whole nother ball game in itself, because of, a lot of the mental challenges that sort of come with that. And it's not a simple thing for them to just go, I don't need that anymore. Or it doesn't really work like that. It's a whole nother thought process. And I do think quite often you need some quite specialist sort of training to deal with that. But I think one of the clients that sticks in my mind is actually one of my shortest ever sessions. So I tend to do mainly about 6 hours with people, sometimes longer. My minimum is 4, but quite often I find that we can't quite get enough done in the 4 hours. But I had one lady that came to me who, that was all that, she could sort of gather together sort of money wise, and her partner had been helping her. But she had lots of health issues. She'd been pretty much bedridden for quite a long time with back issues. And I think all around her room was just a sea of stuff.
Hmm.
And even for me, I was in there thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to make a difference to this lady in 4 hours? But do you
Wow.
know
Okay.
what? We did. She worked like a trooper with me, sort of more bringing things to the bed and talking her through things. And I think you've got to be ready to do that. You've got to be at that point where you want to do it, you're ready to do it, because otherwise you're not going to. And it's kind of a little bit, I would think it's a bit of a waste of money. If I think someone's actually not ready to do that, I will say to them, honestly, I don't think this is quite the right time for you, because you've got to be in the right frame of mind and
Hmm.
ready for that, almost that sort of challenge of, right, this is what I want to do. And we made an amazing amount of difference just in that 4 hours, even in helping her think about, she very much wanted to sell lots of things, but again, she didn't really have the time. She wasn't actually that able to get out, post them and things like that. And I said, is this worth your mental health and how you feel in this room to keep those things in order to sell them to make a bit of money? You know, what's worth more money to you? The things selling on eBay, or actually having a clear space that you can move around and not fall and feel good
Mm,
in. And
mm.
she said, I've never thought about it like that. So sometimes having someone like me just ask the right questions, to actually get you thinking about what your priorities are and how you want to live and what's affecting you. Yeah, so we worked quickly and efficiently as we could. And gosh, the review, you'd almost cry at the review she left me as a
Aw.
testimonial, because it made such a difference to her. And there was me when I first went in thinking, gosh, we've only got 4 hours. Really, what can we do in time? But it just shows you when someone's ready to make a change and you get somebody like me in to help you do that, come alongside you, coach you through it, it can make a real difference to people. And, a lot of the women, I will say it's mainly women that I work with, they've got such a weight on their shoulders of family life, of work life, of home life, that they're drowning a little bit in those pressures. And when they work with me and we simplify even their daily routine, you can literally feel the weight come off their shoulders. And
Mm.
and that's almost priceless to them. I would say I can't often always get the value across to people of what I do until they experience it, because you don't know what that feels like until you have it
Yeah.
done, and then it has made that massive difference to you that you almost thought wasn't possible. Just simplifying the school run, how you get out of the house in the morning, how you do bedtime, for families, that's massive.
Yeah.
And it's very different for each person. But it's like the best reward ever.
And it gives you back so much time and energy, basically, that you didn't have when you've just got systems in place and everything's a bit more ordered and organized.
Yeah.
And yeah, what I love about what you do is, I mean, it's a bit like what I do, really. It's like being a coach and just hand holding someone through the
Yeah.
process.
Hmm.
Because yeah, it's like, people can declutter themselves, obviously, and get a bit more organized, just like they can kind of, detox and do all the kind of strategies that I like to do themselves. But
Yeah.
there's nothing like being handheld through it to kind of keep your motivation up, keep your accountability up, really, and just know that you're going the right direction and you're going to do it once and once for all, and then you're going to have the skills forever. So I
Yeah.
really think that, yeah, coaches and, having people that are kind of like there to help you through the process, at least for the first time, is super important.
Yeah, and it's also having, I think, somebody that you don't know. You know,
Mm.
I'm always super honored of the people that let me into their homes and show me things that they would never show anybody else, and it is like that, and they are embarrassed, and it's not about that. It's about, making that difference to them so that then they're not embarrassed to bring somebody into their home. Because that's often what most people want, is to bring more people around, have more people for functions, for Christmas, whatever, or just the mum round after school. But I can't do that because my house looks like this. And just bringing
Hmm.
that up and then bringing more community into your home by making it quicker and easier to tidy up, etc., which sometimes you never thought of it that way, but that even it brings a whole another community for you and your children. Again, that's perhaps a byproduct of something that we haven't thought about before. But when it's not somebody it may I think it does make it a little bit easier that somebody's not judging you. I'm not there to judge you. I'm there to help you to the best of my ability. And I think that's much easier perhaps with somebody who isn't family, who isn't a friend, and someone who is coming alongside you, holding your hand, helping you perhaps think about it in a little bit of a different way, and also getting a lot more done in a shorter amount of time.
Yep. Many hands make light work.
Yep.
I think that's really important what you said around community, actually, because I'd never thought of that. But yeah, I imagine there's quite a lot of situations out there whereby people would like to invite people around more, have more family occasions, and either just simply don't have the space from the amount of stuff, or as you said, just there's a bit of maybe shame around the fact that, their house isn't quite looking how they want it to. And so they don't feel like they can invite people into that. So yeah, that's another amazing kind of benefit that I hadn't thought about. On that, no, or moving slightly on to kind of home staging. The last thing I wanted to ask you really was, at the moment, lots of people are trying to sell houses. So I speak to a lot of people who've either got their house on the market or they're trying to buy something. So there's a lot of talk around home staging and how a home should look basically to, well, either to sell or to gain the kind of like maximum price that we can. Do you help anybody do home staging for selling their homes? And also, what would your advice be to get your home in the best nick, basically, to attract the most people?
I've only helped a couple of people with that because I think quite often people want to sort of do it themselves. But always, again, it comes down to decluttering. People can't really see and imagine themselves in a space if it's got lots and lots of stuff in it. When we go to stay in a hotel or an Airbnb, we don't want to be surrounded by everybody's stuff. We don't want to look at all those things. So depersonalizing it, you have to put yourself in the buyer's shoes. It's not forever. Packing away your stuff helps you get started on the packing process, but just depersonalizing, removing lots of knickknacks, making each room have its purpose. So if, for instance, if you've got a spare room and it's a bit of this and it's a bit of that and it does that, give it a specific purpose so that someone can say, oh, actually, yeah, no, that is a 3-bedroom house. It's not a 2-bedroom with an office, or it's not a 2-bedroom with a junk room, or, set up each area for how somebody might want to use it, depersonalize, remove the clutter, and just make it a lot more streamlined. You can do things such as, obviously, smells are quite important, having it smell nice, have somebody else come in and say, how does it, because we can get used to the own smell of our own home, putting the coffee on, having a nice scented candle going, all those sorts of things. I think, we underestimate actually the power of those sorts of things. We go into a coffee shop and the first thing that hits us is, oh, I love the smell of the coffee. So all those sorts of things are really helpful, but it's mainly depersonalizing it and removing all the knickknacks and the clutter and finishing off all those little jobs that you haven't got round to, the odd hole in the wall and where you've not finished the painting, or, stuff like that. You just are going to get a little bit more for your money than someone thinking, oh, that needs doing, this needs doing, or they haven't finished off that, it's something wrong there, that would probably be my sort of best tips along those lines.
I think they're great tips. And yeah, as you say, I think if you put the least obstacles in the buyer's way, the better. And if they can envision themselves in the space and not have it overtaken by all your kind of personal photos and stuff, it makes it much easier for them to imagine that. So yeah, that's really great tips. Thank you very much. So before I let you go, would you mind sharing with us where everyone can find you? Are you more on Instagram or LinkedIn, or I'm assuming your services are on your website. I've seen them there. So yeah, share with us where we can find you.
So I have my website, www.organise2thrive.co.uk. I'm probably most active on Instagram, more so than Facebook. I'm perhaps not as active as I like at the moment because actually I'm so super busy before Christmas. Everybody wants to get sorted before Christmas. So just like everybody else, I go in waves of when I have time to do these things. So sometimes I'm a bit more active on it than others. But yeah, and you've got my website, my Google listing, Instagram and Facebook. So yeah, that's where you can find me. And I'm based here down in Folkestone in Kent.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, I'll put links to all those in the show notes anyway.
Okay.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all your tips with us. They're really, really useful. I'm actually kind of loving the idea of putting my photos in a book now. I'm gonna go crack
Yeah.
on with that basically when I get back to my home. But yeah, thanks very much for your time today and really, really nice to chat with you again.
Well, thank you so much.